Okay, you did it. You committed, you signed that lease, you bought that house, or maybe you're just still on the fence, but I wanna make a video for you guys today all about some very, very important tips on what to do in the first 30 days after getting here to the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. This video is a little different than my normal videos about different neighborhoods, different things that make Denver so great, but this one I think is just as important, and to be honest, I haven't seen anybody else do a video on it yet, so hopefully you guys get some value. Before we jump into that though, if you do have any questions when you go through it, all that info below, feel free to reach out. And with that being said, let's jump right into it. So the way I put this checklist together, there's actually gonna be 8 things, and you can do all of these really within about the first 30 days. So no procrastinating here. I know there's that exciting concert you wanna see at Red Rocks, or maybe a new hike that you haven't done yet. There's time for that. Do this first, thank me later. So let's just jump right into it though. So the first thing on the list is actually something that more people get affected by than you might realize, and that is bracing for the altitude. So if you're actually coming to Denver, as you may have already known, we are at Mile High. So we're 5,280 feet above sea level, but a lot of the fun adventures you're gonna be going on are gonna be bringing you even higher up into the, maybe 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, or who knows, maybe you guys are avid hikers and you're gonna knock out a few 14ers. That's 14,000 foot peaks. We actually have over 54 of them, 58 depending on who you ask. But when it comes to altitude, there's some really important tips that I always tell all my friends, family, just people that are visiting that can really make a big difference. Now, a lot of the symptoms are pretty minor, a lot of headaches, maybe just fatigue, stuff like that. But the best thing you can always do is just drink water. And I know that seems basic, that seems maybe like something you would do no matter what, but just the amount of water you're drinking already, try and double it. Now, in addition to those headaches, you also might be encountering some fatigue, maybe some trouble sleeping, and maybe even shortness of breath when just walking up a flight or two of stairs. So University of Colorado Health, or known as UC Health here in Denver, they always recommend a minimum of 24, but ideally 48 hours to give your body that amount of time to really acclimatize to our altitude here. If you don't follow those guidelines and you land at 6 o'clock at night and the next morning you're already out doing the big hike or something that's gonna take a lot of your energy, those are the experiences, those are the scenarios where you really feel it the most. So again, in an ideal, perfect world, once you get here to Denver, so just remember to always give your body just that little bit of extra love and care. Make sure that you really are feeling yourself before getting too crazy out here in the mountains. And one other thing that I'll share that I actually did not know about until doing a little research for the video today, if you have it so bad, you can even actually go to a doctor and they have a drug, a prescription that they can give you known as acetazolamide. I had to look at my screen there for a second just to say that right. Maybe I totally butchered it, but if you do have that extreme of an issue, there's always that path to take as well. Okay, so now moving right into the second thing on this checklist, and that's registering your vehicle. And these are some of the maybe more boring things that just have to get done, and this is a big one. The reason it's big is because this one has a hard deadline of 90 days. And if you go past that and maybe you just go to the grocery store and have your car parked and a cop drives by and sees your license plate, or maybe just get pulled over for speeding and just kind of getting your familiarity here with the Denver area and you're not paying attention, you get pulled over. If that happens and you're over that 90-day threshold, you are gonna get a ticket for this, and this is such an easy one for cops to give. So just make sure you guys are doing this really within that first 30 days that you get to the Denver area. Now, there's basically 3 steps to this process. The first one is just verifying your VIN, your vehicle identification number. The second one, though, is kind of a big one, and something that is becoming a lot more common of a chore for people even that live here already that they have to do. So I already live obviously here in Denver. I've been here my whole life. And out here, if you have a car that's over 7 years of age, every 2 years you have to have an emissions test done. If you guys are coming from out of state, I believe you're actually gonna have this be a requirement no matter what, even if your car is fairly brand new. But getting that emissions test is really, really important. And there's horror stories of showing up to the emissions and having it be a 3-hour wait just to get this 5-minute test done. The good news is now you actually have the ability to go and even schedule an appointment for this. Or what I always do is I just try and get there right when they first open. That tends to be the best time where you don't have to wait as long, especially on a weekday. So if that happens to be something you can work with your schedule, definitely try that tactic as well. Now, the third thing, after you've gotten that VIN number and you've had that emissions test, the biggest one as far as time consuming is going to be actually going down to the county clerk's office. And the reason I wanted to point this out specifically is this is a little bit different from some other states. Some states just have a state office for this. In Denver and in Colorado, we actually do it by county. So depending on what county you live in, that's the clerk and recorder's office you're gonna have to go to. And I made the mistake actually of this exact thing last year. I looked it up online. I went to one in Denver, but then realized that I actually wasn't in the county of Denver where my license and where my car was registered. So I had to leave after waiting 30 minutes and make an appointment at a different county clerk's office. So just make sure you guys are aware of that too. Okay, enough about that boring stuff. Now let's move on to the third tip on this checklist. This is a big one as well. And this is getting your insurance right. So let's just assume maybe you're coming from a state like maybe Florida or somewhere coastal where you're probably not as familiar with things like hail. Well, in Colorado, we have a lot of hail. That's one of the biggest issues when it comes to insurance claims. And depending on where you're coming from, you might not have this as part of your coverage. So just make sure as soon as you get out here within that first 30 days that you're ensuring that whatever you do have for your car's protection has that hail insurance included. Now, I also want to make a point that this isn't just about your vehicle. This is actually also very, very important, especially if you just bought a house out here in Colorado, for your home insurance. Now, the easiest way to ensure that you have the best policy possible when it comes to home insurance is the type of shingle that is on your home. So if you're ever having your roof replaced, just make sure that you're always asking for what we call Class 4 impact resistant shingles. And what that's not only gonna do is protect your home better because of the hail. In fact, sometimes we get even golf ball size hail, believe it or not. But in addition to that, it's also gonna give you typically a break on the policy as far as the cost for that annual premium for your home insurance. So just make sure you're aware of hail especially. And if you guys are maybe living somewhere closer to the mountains, maybe on the western side of Denver, maybe areas like Golden or Evergreen, depending on what kind of a home you have, you also need to be very aware of fire mitigation and fire insurance. And we had some major claims a few years back on this. Over 1,000 homes actually got burned to the ground just outside of Boulder. And that really changed things up when it came to home insurance and just how all of this is interpreted and just how it is done in a state that typically in the past didn't have that big of a publicity or fame when it came to high insurance claims. So long-winded way of just reminding you guys, make sure that you're very keen and aware of both your auto insurance and your home insurance. And before moving on, just to share one statistic with you guys about this, when it came to auto insurance claims and just auto insurance in general, Colorado was just recently ranked 5th in the entire nation for the highest auto insurance. So just making the point to get a few different quotes if you are getting a new policy and just shop around a little bit. I guarantee if you do this, you might be able to save yourself a few dollars. Okay, so now number 4 on this checklist. This is gonna be something that I think all of us think about, but I've never seen it before in a video or any sort of a checklist, but that is to figure out where all of the best grocery stores are located. And this is something that, I grew up in the late 80s and going into the 90s, and back then, we had one grocery store. Out here, it's called King Soopers. It's under that Kroger umbrella. But out here, we really didn't have that many options back then. Fast forward to today, and man, there are so many different options, even just within like a mile radius of where I live here in Littleton. I've got natural grocers, we've got Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, King Soopers, Safeway, City Market, and those are just the few that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. There's a lot of options out there. The reason I even wanted to put this on the list though, is more specifically on just understanding how much they can vary, not just between the different types of stores. Trader Joe's is obviously very different from a King Soopers, but also how important it is to understand that even like with King Soopers, how much better certain locations are than others. Where I live, again, in Littleton, there's 2 within about a 5 to 7 minute drive from my house. One of them, awesome. The other one of the worst I've ever been to. So just really understanding that there's some options out there no matter what part of Denver you guys move to, but also just being aware that if you go into one, you don't like it, don't give up. I guarantee there's probably a few others within at least a 1 to 2 mile radius. So now number 5 on the checklist, this one's a little bit more fun, and this one is understanding how the national parks here in Colorado work, specifically with you have to get a permit now to enter, to camp. Some of the different changes that have happened over the last few years are really important, and unfortunately, I've seen it time and time again where people will come out here, especially more on vacation than when they move out here, but on vacation, they'll come out just for maybe a short period of time, maybe a week, and they wait until they get out here to try and go see one of the national parks. I have a great option for you guys, which is Rocky Mountain National Park, and that's really close to our cabin in Grand Lake. And what happens is people come out here, they want to drive through Rocky Mountain National Park, And then they realize that, oh my gosh, I have to make a reservation. I have to have a permit just to go into the park. And they limit those per day just to help with traffic and just to make it a lot more pristine for the people that day, which is great. But if you wait too long, you might be out of luck. So just being aware that if this is important to you when you get out here, maybe you've got some friends that are coming out with you to help you unpack and you want to take them on a really special trip like up to Rocky Mountain National Park, just make sure you're aware of this and you get that permit booked, you get that reservation just locked and loaded way ahead of time. That way you guys are able to enjoy yourselves when you're out here. And then one other tip, depending on what kind of activities you want to get involved in. Maybe you're not interested in going backpacking or camping and needing a permit for where you're going to lay your tent at for the night, but you love going to all the different state parks. Well, the good news is you can actually get an annual pass. This is what my parents have. I believe it's even free after a certain age. I think it might be above 70, you get it for free. But otherwise, it's anywhere between about $80 and $120, and that's an annual pass. And not only does it give you access to, for example, Rocky Mountain National Park, but actually all 42 of them in the entire country. So if you guys are out and about and traveling a lot and can really take advantage of that, maybe that's the best option. Okay, number 6 on the checklist, and this is kind of similar to one I shared earlier about registering your car. If you guys remember, with car registration, you have a 90-day window that you have to get it done. With the driver's license, on the other hand, which is this point, you only have 30 days. So really, the clock is ticking right off the bat. And this is a big one, you guys. So make sure this is high priority as soon as you come out here. And this one is not that difficult to do. The reason it's not that difficult to do is probably because of the years and years of people complaining about their least favorite place in the entire world. And you guessed it, it was the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles. I mean, I can remember still to this day, about maybe 25 years ago, it was, pretty close after I got my driver's license. And I remember going to one of these. It was actually up in Glenwood Springs, and I thought it was gonna be a quick, in and out, maybe there for an hour. I was literally waiting for 4 hours and literally wasted my entire day just to get an updated driver's license. So the great news is nowadays, with most of the DMVs in and around Denver, they have it as only reservation. So you go online, go to dmv.colorado.gov, and you can actually see which options are closest to where you're gonna be living, and you can reserve this ahead of time. That way when you show up, it's much, much easier, it's more efficient, and it doesn't turn into this, nightmare of an experience. So I do honestly have to say, the last few times I've had to go to the DMV, it's been pleasant, it's been quick. So if you guys are really, just putting this off because you're expecting it to be this horrible experience, maybe it's still a really bad experience where you currently live. Good news, Colorado has really done some improvements with this, and you should be good to go. So number 7 on this checklist is gonna be all about weather. And maybe you guys have seen some of my other past videos. I always like to talk about weather if you are not that familiar yet with Denver. There's all these different sayings, if you don't like the weather in Colorado, wait 15 minutes, those types of things. But the really, really important one is also understanding, depending on what season you're in, how important it is to be prepared. So even if you live in Denver, you're just going up maybe just a half hour to the west, just a short drive, just to get into some little bit higher elevation hikes, maybe around Evergreen, Conifer, some of the really, really fun, awesome hikes that we have within literally a 30 to 45 minute drive of Denver. And it's a beautiful day in Denver, maybe it's 75, and I'm just gonna wear my shirt, shorts, I don't need much, it's gonna be a beautiful hike. Well, man, just that much of a difference of altitude, maybe a couple thousand feet of elevation gain, and it could be a totally different environment. You could be needing a jacket, pants, maybe even a rain coat, maybe even a light parka, depending on what time of day it is. Once that sun goes down, it can dramatically change. So just being really clear with the weather, and if you don't have the right type of gear, what I always recommend starting with is getting a really nice down jacket. Now, when you think of down jacket, if you guys have ever had one before, you might be thinking of this huge puffy jacket that you look like a marshmallow walking around. That's not what I'm talking about. They actually have different levels of fill in the down jackets, and you can get some that are a lesser fill. I believe it's like 700 is the measurement that they use. And I actually have one of these. I wear it 12 months out of the year because what I love about down is it keeps you really warm. However, if it's a more, maybe a not super cold day and you just want to have a little bit of warmth, it actually almost makes you feel kind of cool as well. Like there's not the same level of like getting all sweaty and kind of enclosed. With down, it's just a much more breathable material. And if you're not familiar with it yet, I definitely recommend getting yourself one. And just that one jacket will literally be something that you can keep in your car in case you do get caught up in the high country and the weather is different than what you expected, but also just because it's so functional. You know, I actually have one that I use for skiing. I've used it in the summertime up at my cabin on the boat. I mean, you can really get a lot of value and use out of a light down jacket. So make sure you put that pretty high on your list of things to get. And if you guys need a great recommendation for a store to see some of this type of stuff, check out REI. You know, REI has locations all over Colorado, but there is one specifically, and it's right by downtown Denver, right by the amusement park, Six Flags. It's actually in a really cool part of the Denver area called Highlands. And this is an incredible store because they actually repurposed an old train museum that was built in this really, really cool old brick building. It was around forever. It's called the Forney Museum, but now it's REI, and it just is an incredible shopping experience. You know, there's a climbing wall inside. They even built a little creek outside that you can test out different kayaking equipment. I mean, everything you can think of that is fun to do in Colorado, you can get your gear for those activities, all of it at REI. So definitely maybe put that on a list of places to check out the first week or two once you come out here to Denver. And if you do, let me know what you think. Hopefully you guys enjoy it as much as I do. Okay, and then last but not least, number 8 on this checklist, save the best one for last, or at least the one that I think can really be a big deciding factor on how your experience is when you come out here. And that is understanding how many different types of communities there are out here. So how important it is to find your tribe. I know that's kind of a cheesy way to say it, but what I mean by this is so many people that live in Denver are transplants, you know, probably similar to maybe you guys if you're considering or you're already planning on coming out here. If that's the case, you got to realize that all these people that have moved to Colorado from all over the country, all over the world, they all have different styles of life, you know? In Denver, what I love, and one reason why I still live here, is how they embrace this active, healthy lifestyle. And a lot of people that move out here from big cities, they think it's gonna be a city, Denver is gonna be a city where there'll be a lot of nightlife, lots of restaurants, bars, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, there is a lot of that stuff, and it's great if that's what you're into, but there's also people that come out here that I think have a hard time connecting and making friends because maybe that's just not their scene. And there are so many ways to connect with people if you just wanna be more outdoorsy, maybe you just wanna get involved in intramural activities, whatever it may be, just understanding how important it is. I know there's a lot going on when you first move here, but just being really intentional about finding at least 1 or 2 different groups, different ways to connect with people. Now with social media these days, there's so many ways to do this. If you guys are single, there's all kinds of cool singles groups on Facebook. Even if you're just like a couple, a young couple without kids, there's groups for that. There's groups for maybe you have a dog, like my dog Charlie, who's a corgi. You can find groups that are just for people that have corgis. Just being intentional and really understanding how much value you're gonna get out of these relationships you start building early on after you move out here. Colorado is an incredible place. That's why so many incredible people decide to move out here and live here, but it can get overwhelming. And I personally have fallen into this before when I've moved to different parts of the state where it can be lonely at times. So I just want you guys to be intentional before you even come out here maybe with trying to connect with some people on these different ways. Social media, like I said, is one of my favorites just because it's so easy now to do these days. But just connecting with some people and making this experience as good as it possibly can be. With all that being said, you guys, hope you got some value out of this checklist. I know it's a little different than normal, but just want to remind you guys, if you have any questions, any comments, if you just want to connect, all the info down below, feel free to reach out. I love to just chat and learn a little bit more about how I can provide value as a Colorado and Denver native and help spread the word about why this is such an incredible place to call home. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time on a brand new episode of Living in Denver. I'll see you then. Bye.